The next morning brought the first of Kate's medical appointments at the London clinic, a private hospital where the royal family had received medical care for many years. William insisted on driving Kate himself rather than using their usual driver, wanting these moments to remain as private as possible. The early morning traffic was light as they made their way through the city streets, both of them lost in their own thoughts about what the day might bring. Kate sat quietly in the passenger seat, wearing a simple navy blue dress and sunglasses. To help avoid recognition, she had chosen her outfit carefully, wanting to look composed and normal despite the anxiety she was feeling inside. William kept glancing over at her during the drive, wishing he could take away her worry and fear. They had both slept poorly the night before. Lying awake in the darkness and holding hands without saying much, the hospital entrance was discreet. Designed to protect the privacy of high-profile patients, Dr. Mitchell was waiting for them personally, which Kate appreciated. The doctor was a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a calm manner that immediately put Kate at ease. She had been Kate's physician for several years and understood the unique pressures that came with her public role. Dr. Mitchell led them to a private consultation room that was comfortable and welcoming rather than clinical and cold. She explained the day's schedule of tests in simple terms, making sure Kate understood each procedure and what information it would provide. William listened carefully to every word, taking mental notes about questions he wanted to ask later. The doctor's calm professionalism helped both of them feel more confident about the process. The first test was a series of blood draws that would provide more detailed information than the initial screening that had raised concerns. Kate sat patiently while the technician worked, chatting with William about ordinary things to distract herself from the procedure. They talked about the children's weekend plans and a new book Kate had been reading. These normal conversations helped maintain a sense of routine in an otherwise extraordinary situation between appointments. Kate and William walked in the hospital's private garden, peaceful space designed for patients and families who needed quiet moments during difficult times. The garden was filled with roses and lavender, creating a soothing atmosphere that contrasted sharply with the medical environment inside. Kate picked a small sprig of lavender and held it in her hands, finding comfort in its familiar scent. William used this quiet time to call his father, King Charles, to inform him about Kate's medical situation. The conversation was difficult, but necessary, and William was grateful for his father's immediate offer of support and understanding. The king assured William that Kate's health was the absolute priority and that any royal duties could be adjusted or postponed as needed. His reaction was exactly what William had hoped for, removing one source of stress from an already challenging situation. The afternoon brought more tests, including imaging scans that would provide detailed pictures of Kate's internal organs. The procedures were not painful but were time-consuming and required Kate to remain very still for extended periods. William was allowed to stay with her for some of the tests, holding her hand and providing quiet encouragement. During the scans, they could hear the humming and clicking of the machines, sounds that seemed both reassuring and frightening at the same time. Dr. Mitchell explained that the results from the day's tests would not be available immediately. Some results would come back within a few days, while others might take a week or more. The waiting period would be the most difficult part of the process, requiring patience and emotional strength from both Kate and William. The doctor encouraged them to maintain their normal routines as much as possible during this time. On the drive home, Kate was quieter than she had been in the morning. The day's medical procedures had been emotionally draining, and she was beginning to feel the full weight of uncertainty about her future. William suggested they stop for lunch at a small cafe they had discovered years earlier, a place where they could sit quietly and decompress from the morning's intensity. The cafe was nearly empty during the lunch hour, and they were able to find a corner table where they could speak privately. Kate ordered her favorite soup, though she found it difficult to eat much. William encouraged her to try, knowing that she needed to maintain her strength for the challenges ahead. They talked about calling Kate's sister Pippa to update her on the day's events, and about whether to tell the children anything about the medical appointments. After lunch, they drove to Kate's parents' home in Berkshire, where Kate had decided to stay for a few days, as her mother had suggested. The familiar countryside and the sight of her childhood home brought Kate a sense of peace that she had not felt since receiving Dr. Mitchell's first phone call. Carol and Michael Middleton were waiting for them, having prepared Kate's old bedroom, and planned quiet activities for the coming days. The evening at the Middleton home was deliberately low-key and comforting. Carol had prepared Kate's favorite dinner, and they ate in the kitchen where Kate had shared thousands of meals growing up. The conversation was gentle and supportive, focusing on positive memories and future plans rather than dwelling on medical concerns. Michael, Kate's father, shared stories from his recent business trips, providing welcome distraction and normalcy. William stayed for dinner, but returned to Kensington Palace that evening to be with the children. The separation was difficult for both him and Kate, but they agreed that maintaining routine for Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis was essential. William promised to call Kate every few hours and to return the next day with updates from home before leaving. William and Kate walked together in the garden behind the Middleton home. It's the same garden where they had shared many conversations during their courtship years earlier. The familiar surroundings brought back memories of simpler times when their biggest concerns were university exams and career decisions. Now, facing an uncertain medical future, those earlier worries seemed insignificant by comparison. Kate thanked William for his strength and support throughout the day. She told him how much it meant to her to have him by her side during the medical appointments, and how his presence made even the most frightening moments bearable. William assured her that he would be with her every step of the way, no matter what the test results might reveal. As William drove back to London, he reflected on the day's events and the strength Kate had shown, despite her obvious fear and anxiety. The next few days would bring more waiting and uncertainty, but he felt confident that together they could handle whatever news the doctors might bring. The morning sun filtered through the tall windows of Kensington Palace, casting long shadows across the polished marble floors. William woke up as he always did at exactly 6:30 in the morning. The palace was still quiet, with only the distant sounds of the household staff beginning their daily routines. He rolled over in bed and looked at Kate, who was still sleeping peacefully beside him. Her long brown hair was spread across the white pillow, and she looked younger in the soft morning light. William smiled and gently brushed a strand of hair from her face, careful not to wake her. As William got out of bed and walked to the bathroom, he noticed something that made him pause. Kate's phone was still lit up on her nightstand, showing several missed calls and text messages. This was unusual because Kate always turned her phone off before going to sleep. She had always been particular about keeping their bedroom a peaceful space, free from the constant demands of royal duties and public attention. The glowing screen in the early morning darkness seemed somehow ominous. It's like a warning of something yet to come. William went through his morning routine of showering and getting dressed, but he could not shake the feeling that something was different about this day. The palace felt unusually quiet, even for the early morning hours. Usually, he could hear the sounds of the kitchen staff preparing breakfast or the security team changing shifts. Today there was an almost eerie silence that made him feel on edge. He looked out the window at the palace gardens, where the groundskeepers were already at work. But even they seemed to be moving more slowly than usual. When William returned to the bedroom, Kate was awake and sitting up in bed. She was staring at her phone with a serious expression that he had rarely seen before. Her usually bright blue eyes looked worried, and there were small lines around them that suggested she had not slept well. Kate looked up at William when he entered the room, and he could see that she was trying to force a smile. The smile did not reach her eyes, and William immediately knew that something was wrong. Kate said good morning too, William in a voice that was quieter than usual. She set her phone down on the nightstand and got out of bed, but her movements seemed slower and more careful than normal. William watched as she walked to her dressing table and began brushing her hair, but she kept glancing at her reflection in the mirror with a troubled expression. The morning routine that they had shared for years suddenly felt awkward and uncertain. During breakfast, the atmosphere in the dining room was tense. The children, Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis, were their usual energetic selves, chattering about their plans for school and asking questions about the weekend. Kate responded to them with her typical warmth and attention, but William could see that she was making an effort to appear normal. She kept checking her phone, which was beside her plate. and William noticed that her hands were slightly shaking when she reached for her coffee cup. The dining room at Kensington Palace was one of Kate's favorite rooms in their home. The walls were painted a soft cream color, and morning sunlight streamed through the large windows that overlooked the private gardens. The family usually enjoyed their breakfast together, sharing stories and making plans for the day. Today, however, the familiar warmth of the room felt forced, as if everyone was acting in a play where they had forgotten their lines. William tried to make conversation with the children, asking them about their homework and their upcoming school activities. Princess Charlotte was excited about an art project she was working on, while Prince George wanted to talk about a football match he was going to watch with his friends. Prince Louis, the youngest, was more interested in the jam on his toast than in conversation. Their innocent chatter provided a welcome distraction from the tension that William could feel between himself and Kate. After the children left for school with their security detail and nanny, the dining room became uncomfortably quiet. Kate continued to sit at the table, slowly stirring her coffee, even though she had not added any sugar or cream. William could see that she was lost in thought, and he wondered what was troubling her so deeply. He had learned over the years of their marriage that Kate preferred to process difficult situations quietly before sharing them with others. But this seemed different from her usual thoughtful nature. William cleared his throat gently and asked, "Kate, if everything was all right?" She looked up at him with eyes that were beginning to fill with tears, though she was clearly fighting to keep them from falling. Kate took a deep breath and told William that she needed to talk to him about something important. Her voice was barely above a whisper, and William could hear the fear and uncertainty in every word. The grandfather clock in the corner of the dining room chimed 9 times, marking the official start of another day. The sound seemed to echo through the room, emphasizing the gravity of the moment. William reached across the table and took Kate's hand in his, feeling how cold her fingers were despite the warm morning air. He could see that whatever Kate needed to tell him was weighing heavily on her heart, and he prepared himself to hear news that would change their lives forever. Kate squeezed William's hand and began to speak, her words coming slowly and carefully. She told him about a phone call she had received the previous evening, after he had gone to bed early due to a headache. The caller had been Dr. Sarah Mitchell, Kate's personal physician, who had been running some routine tests following Kate's recent complaints about feeling unusually tired and experiencing some concerning symptoms. The results of those tests had come back, and Dr. Mitchell had needed to speak with Kate immediately. As Kate continued to speak, William felt his heart beginning to race. He could see the fear in his wife's eyes and hear the tremor in her voice, as she struggled to find the right words to share this burden with him. The morning sun continued to shine through the windows, but the room suddenly felt cold and uncertain, as if their entire world was about to change in ways they could never have imagined. William felt the world around him suddenly become very still as Kate continued to speak. Her words seemed to come from far away, even though she was sitting right across from him at their familiar breakfast table. Kate explained that Dr. Mitchell had found some abnormal results in her recent blood tests, results that required immediate attention and further investigation. The doctor had tried to sound reassuring over the phone, but Kate could hear the concern in her voice, the careful way she chose each word. Kate's hands were trembling more noticeably.
Ow.
As she reached for a tissue from the small box on the table, she wiped her eyes gently, trying not to smudge the light makeup she had applied earlier. William watched his wife struggle with emotions he had rarely seen her display so openly. Throughout their years together, Kate had always been the strong one, the person who could handle any crisis with grace and composure. Seeing her vulnerability now made William realize just how serious this situation must be. The dining room that had felt so warm and familiar just moments before now seemed like a different place entirely. The morning sunlight that had been so pleasant was now too bright, making everything look harsh and exposed. The sounds from outside the palace, the distant traffic, and the gardeners working seemed intrusive and inappropriate. William found himself focusing on small details. The way Kate's coffee had grown cold in her cup, the crumbs from the children's toast still scattered on the table. The way the morning newspapers lay unread beside Kate's plate. William stood up from his chair and walked around the table to sit beside Kate, he put his arm around her shoulders and felt how tense her body had become. Kate leaned into him, and for a moment they sat in silence, both trying to process what this news might mean for their family. William could smell Kate's familiar perfume, the same scent she had worn since their university days together. It was a small comfort in a moment that felt completely overwhelming. Kate continued her explanation, telling William about the specific concerns Dr. Mitchell had raised. There were indicators in her blood work that suggested possible serious health issues that would require extensive testing to confirm or rule out. The doctor had scheduled an appointment for Kate to come in immediately for more comprehensive tests, including scans and consultations with specialists. Kate had agreed to all of this over the phone, but now, sitting with William, the reality of what lay ahead was beginning to sink in. William asked Kate why she had not woken him when the call came. Kate explained that it had been nearly midnight when Dr. Mitchell called, and William had gone to bed early with a severe headache that had been bothering him all day. She had not wanted to disturb his rest, especially when she was not sure exactly what the test results meant. Kate had spent most of the night lying awake, staring at the ceiling and trying to understand what the doctor had told her. The weight of Kate's consideration for him, even while dealing with her own fears, made William feel both grateful and guilty. He told Kate that she should always wake him for something this important, that they were partners in everything and should face difficulties together. Kate nodded and apologized, explaining that she had needed some time to process the information herself before she could talk about it with anyone else, even him. William asked Kate what the next steps would be. Kate pulled out her phone and showed him a series of text messages from Dr. Mitchell's office, outlining appointments that had been scheduled for the coming days. There would be more blood tests, imaging scans, and meetings with specialists at the private hospital where Kate usually received her medical care. The schedule looked overwhelming. With appointments nearly every day for the next 2 weeks, Kate expressed her concern about how this would affect their royal duties and public appearances. They had several important engagements scheduled, including a charity gala that Kate had been particularly looking forward to, and a series of school visits that were part of her education initiative. William immediately told Kate that none of those commitments mattered compared to her health, that they could reschedule or cancel anything that conflicted with her medical appointments. The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Maria, their longtime housekeeper, who came to clear the breakfast dishes. Maria immediately sensed that something was wrong, noting the untouched food and the serious expressions on both William and Kate's faces. Kate quickly composed herself and thanked Maria with her usual warmth, but William could see the effort it took for her to appear normal. After Maria left the room, Kate broke down completely for the first time that morning. The tears she had been holding back finally came, and she sobbed quietly into William's shoulder. William held her tightly, feeling his own eyes begin to water as he absorbed his wife's fear and uncertainty. He whispered reassurances to her, telling her that whatever they were facing, they would handle it together. She was the strongest person he knew, and that everything would be all right. Kate pulled back from William's embrace and looked directly into his eyes. She told him that she was scared, not just for herself, but for what this might mean for their children and their family. She worried about how the public and the media would react if news of her health issues became known. Kate had always been private about personal matters, and the thought of her medical situation becoming tabloid headlines was almost as frightening as the health concerns themselves. William assured Kate that they would handle the public aspect of this situation carefully, and on their own terms. He reminded her that their family's privacy and well-being came first, before any public duties or media expectations. They would take this one step at a time, focusing first on getting answers from the doctors and then deciding how much information to share with others. The morning was growing later, and William knew that his private secretary would soon be calling to discuss the day's schedule. Royal life did not pause for personal crises, but William was determined to protect Kate and give her the space she needed to focus on her health. He made a mental note to have all non-essential appointments canceled or postponed, creating room in their schedule for whatever the coming days might bring. Kate stood up from the table and walked to the window, looking out at the garden where she often played with the children. William joined her there, and they stood side by side, both lost in their own thoughts about an uncertain future that had suddenly become very real and very frightening. The rest of the morning passed in a strange blur of activity and quiet moments. William canceled his scheduled meetings for the day, telling his private secretary only that there was an urgent family matter that required his immediate attention. The secretary, James, had worked with the royal family for many years and knew better than to ask too many questions. He simply rearranged the schedule and assured William that everything would be handled appropriately. Kate spent time in her private study, making phone calls to Dr. Mitchell's office to confirm appointment times and discuss what she should expect during the upcoming tests. Each conversation seemed to drain more energy from her, and William could see the exhaustion building in her face. The medical terminology was confusing and frightening. Words like biopsy and specialist consultations that carried weight, neither of them wanted to fully acknowledge yet. Around midday, Kate's mother, Carol Middleton, arrived at Kensington Palace. Kate had called her earlier, needing the comfort and practical advice that only a mother could provide. Carol was a strong woman who had always been Kate's anchor during difficult times. She arrived carrying a small overnight bag, clearly planning to stay as long as she was needed. Her presence immediately brought a sense of calm to the household. Carol sat with Kate and William in the smaller sitting room, the one the family used for private conversations away from the formal spaces where official business was conducted. The room was decorated in soft blues and creams, with comfortable furniture and family photographs on every surface. It was here that Kate felt most like herself, away from the public role she played as a member of the royal family. Kate explained the situation to her mother with more composure than she had been able to manage earlier with William. Having already shared the burden with her husband, Kate found it easier to discuss the medical concerns and upcoming appointments. Carol listened carefully, asking practical questions about the doctors, the hospital, and what support Kate would need in the coming weeks. William watched the interaction between Kate and her mother with deep appreciation. Carol had always treated him like her own son, welcoming him into the Middleton family with genuine warmth from the very beginning of his relationship with Kate. Now, in this moment of crisis, her steady presence was exactly what their family needed. She was already thinking ahead, offering to help with the children's schedules and suggesting ways to maintain normalcy for them during this uncertain time. The conversation was interrupted by the return of the children from school. Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis came into the house with their usual energy and chatter. Their school bags dropped carelessly in the hallway as they searched for their parents. The sound of their voices and footsteps brought life back into the palace, reminding everyone that normal family life needed to continue despite the adult worries that were consuming Kate and William. Kate immediately shifted into her role as a mother, asking the children about their school day and listening to their stories with genuine interest. William marveled at her ability to compartmentalize her fears and focus completely on their children's needs. Princess Charlotte showed off a drawing she had made in art class, while Prince George wanted to discuss an upcoming school football match. Prince Louis, the youngest, simply wanted attention and hugs from both his parents. During afternoon tea, which Carol had insisted on preparing herself, the adults tried to maintain normal conversation while the children were present. They discussed weekend plans, upcoming school events, and other routine family matters. The children seemed to sense that something was different about the atmosphere in the house, but they were too young to understand what it might be. Their innocent questions and observations provided moments of lightness that everyone desperately needed. After the children went upstairs to do their homework, the three adults returned to their serious conversation. Carol had been thinking about practical matters while they were with the children. She suggested that Kate should stay with her and Michael, Kate's father, during the period of medical testing. Their home in Berkshire was private and peaceful. Away from the constant scrutiny that came with living at Kensington Palace, William initially resisted this idea, wanting Kate to stay close to him during this difficult time. However, Kate was intrigued by her mother's suggestion. The thought of being in her childhood home, surrounded by familiar comforts, and away from royal responsibilities was appealing. She could focus entirely on her health without worrying about public duties or media attention. The discussion about where Kate should stay during her treatment led to a broader conversation about how to handle the situation with the extended royal family. William's father, King Charles, would need to be informed soon, as would William's brother Harry and other close family members. Each conversation would be difficult, requiring them to share their fears and uncertainties with people they loved. Kate was particularly concerned about telling King Charles, who had always been supportive of her but who also carried the weight of royal duties and public expectations. She worried that her health issues might create additional stress for him or complicate important state matters. William assured her that his father would be completely supportive and would prioritize her well-being above any royal concerns. As evening approached, the three of them worked together to prepare dinner for the family. Cooking had always been therapeutic for Kate, and the simple act of chopping vegetables and stirring pots provided a welcome distraction from the day's heavy conversations. Carol shared stories from Kate's childhood, reminding her daughter of other challenges they had faced and overcome as a family. The dinner table conversation was lighter than it had been all day, the children dominating the discussion with their usual enthusiasm. Prince George had scored a goal during football practice, Princess Charlotte had been chosen for a special reading group, and Prince Louis had learned a new song in music class. Their accomplishments and excitement were infectious, and for brief moments, Kate found herself able to push aside her medical worries and simply enjoy being their mother. After the children were in bed, Kate, William, and Carol sat together in the living room, planning the next few days in detail. They discussed which appointments William should attend with Kate, how to arrange childcare during hospital visits, and what information should be shared with the household staff. The practical planning helped all of them feel more in control of a situation that felt overwhelming and uncertain. The following days at the Middleton home brought a strange mixture of comfort and anxiety for Kate. She woke each morning in her childhood bedroom, surrounded by familiar furniture and the soft morning light filtering through curtains her mother had chosen years ago. The room still held traces of her younger self, with books from university still on the shelves and photographs of friends and family covering the dresser. These familiar surroundings provided a sense of security that she desperately needed during this uncertain time. Carol had created a gentle routine for Kate that helped pass the days while they waited for test results. Each morning began with breakfast in the sunny kitchen, where mother and daughter would sit together over tea and toast, talking about everything except the medical situation. Carol had a gift for finding topics that distracted Kate from her worries, sharing news about neighbors, discussing books they had both read, or planning small projects around the house. William called Kate several times each day, usually during his breaks between royal duties. These phone conversations became the highlights of Kate's day, connecting her to the life and responsibilities she had temporarily stepped away from. William would tell her about the children's activities, their funny comments, and their questions about when she would be coming home. He was careful to make these calls sound normal and routine, not wanting to add to Kate's stress by revealing his own worry and anxiety. On the third day of Kate's stay with her parents, Dr. Mitchell called with the first set of test results. Kate answered the phone in the privacy of her father's study, with her mother sitting nearby for support. The doctor's voice was calm and professional as she explained that some of the initial concerns had been ruled out by the new tests, which was encouraging news. However, there were still several possibilities that required further investigation and additional testing. Kate felt a complex mixture of relief and continued anxiety after the phone call. The news was not as bad as she had feared, but it was not the complete reassurance she had hoped for either. She shared the update with her mother, and together they called William to pass along the information. William's voice brightened noticeably when he heard that some of the worst possibilities had been eliminated, and he promised to share the positive news with the EHS children in an age-appropriate way. The next few days brought a routine of quiet activities that helped Kate maintain her emotional balance while continuing to wait for more test results. She spent time in her mother's garden, helping to plant spring flowers and finding peace in the simple act of working with soil and seeds. The physical activity was therapeutic, and the garden provided a private space where she could think and process her emotions without feeling observed or judged. Kate also spent hours walking in the countryside around her parents' home, following familiar paths she had explored as a child and teenager. These walks brought back memories of simpler times and reminded her of the strength and resilience she had developed over the years. The fresh air and exercise helped clear her mind and gave her a sense of control during a period when so much felt uncertain and beyond her influence. One afternoon, Kate's sister Pippa arrived unexpectedly, having driven from London to spend time with her sister. Pippa had always been Kate's closest confidant, and her presence brought a different kind of comfort than their mother's nurturing care. The two sisters spent the afternoon talking honestly about Kate's fears and hopes, sharing the kind of intimate conversation that only siblings can have. Pippa helped Kate see the situation from a different perspective, reminding her of challenges they had faced together as a family and how they had always found ways to support each other. She also brought practical suggestions about managing the children's questions and maintaining normal family life during the period of medical uncertainty. Their conversation helped Kate feel more prepared to return to her role as a mother and wife, whatever the final test results might reveal. During the evening, Kate video called with the children, something that had become a daily ritual. Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis gathered around William's phone, each eager to share news from their day and tell their mother about their activities. Princess Charlotte had learned a new song at school and sang it enthusiastically for Kate, while Prince George showed off a drawing he had made in art class. Prince Louis, the youngest, simply wanted to see his mother's face and tell her he missed her. These calls with the children were both wonderful and heartbreaking for Kate. She loved seeing their faces and hearing their voices, but she also felt guilty about being away from them during what should have been ordinary family time. William always stayed on the call after the children went to bed, and he and Kate would talk privately about their hopes and fears for the future. On the 6th day of Kate's stay with her parents, Dr. Mitchell called again with more test results. This time, the news was more definitive and much more positive than anyone had dared to hope. The extensive testing had revealed that Kate's symptoms were caused by a treatable condition that, while serious, was not life-threatening and could be managed effectively with proper medical care. Kate's relief was overwhelming, and she found herself crying tears of joy and gratitude as Dr. Mitchell explained the treatment options and long-term outlook. The condition would require ongoing monitoring and some lifestyle adjustments, but Kate could expect to return to her normal activities and responsibilities. Most importantly, the prognosis was excellent. There was no reason to expect any impact on her ability to care for her family or fulfill her royal duties. After ending the call with Dr. Mitchell, Kate immediately called William to share the wonderful news. His reaction was even more emotional than hers had been, and she could hear the relief and joy in his voice as he processed what the doctor had told her. They talked for nearly an hour, discussing the treatment plan and making arrangements for Kate to return home the next day. Kate then shared the news with her parents, who had been waiting anxiously outside the study during her phone calls. Carol's relief was evident as she hugged her daughter tightly. Michael's usual reserved demeanor gave way to obvious emotion and gratitude. The three of them spent the evening celebrating quietly, grateful for the positive outcome and looking forward to Kate's return to normal family life. That night, Kate slept peacefully for the first time since receiving Dr. Mitchell's initial phone call. The weight of uncertainty had been lifted from her shoulders. She felt ready to return to her life with renewed appreciation for her health, her family, and the simple joys of ordinary days. The morning of Kate's return to Kensington Palace dawned bright and clear, matching the lightness in her heart after receiving the positive news from Dr. Mitchell. She packed her belongings slowly, savoring the last peaceful moments in her childhood bedroom before returning to the demands of royal life. Her mother had prepared a special breakfast, and they sat together one final time in the familiar kitchen. Both feeling grateful for the week they had shared during such a difficult period, William arrived at the Middleton home earlier than expected, eager to bring Kate home and reunite their family. When Kate opened the door and saw him standing there with the biggest smile she had seen in days, she fell into his arms with overwhelming relief and joy. They held each other tightly in the doorway, both finally able to release the tension and fear they had been carrying for the past week. William whispered in her ear how much he had missed her and how grateful he was for the good news. The drive back to London was completely different from their anxious journey to the hospital, just days earlier. Kate and William talked excitedly about the children, about returning to their normal routines, and about their plans for the weekend. The familiar landmarks along the route looked brighter and more welcoming than they had in recent memory. Kate found herself noticing small details she had previously overlooked, feeling grateful for ordinary sights like people walking their dogs and children playing in parks. When they arrived at Kensington Palace, William suggested that Kate rest for a while before the children came home from school. He wanted her to have time to settle back into their home and prepare emotionally for the excited reunion he knew was coming. Kate agreed, but found herself too energetic and happy to actually rest. Instead, she walked through their home, appreciating familiar rooms and belongings with new eyes. Kate spent time in the children's bedrooms, looking at their toys and artwork with deep appreciation for the normal, happy childhood they were able to provide for their family. She straightened Prince Louis's stuffed animals and admired Princess Charlotte's latest drawings that had been added to the wall display. In Prince George's room, she found a drawing he had made for her while she was away, showing their family together with big smiles and bright colors. As the afternoon approached, William and Kate prepared for the children's return from school. They decided to wait in the main entrance hall, wanting to see their faces the moment they walked through the door. Kate felt nervous excitement, similar to what she had experienced on Christmas mornings when the children were smaller. She had missed them more during this week than during any previous separation. The prospect of holding them again filled her with joy. The sound of the children's voices and footsteps echoed through the palace corridors before they appeared in the entrance hall. Prince George was the first to spot his mother, and his face lit up with pure happiness as he ran toward her. Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis followed quickly behind, all three children talking at once as they surrounded Kate with hugs and excited chatter. Kate knelt down to their level and held all three children at once, feeling their warm bodies against hers and breathing in the familiar scent of their hair and skin. The children peppered her with questions about where she had been and what she had been doing, and Kate answered as honestly as she could, while keeping her explanations appropriate for their ages. She told them she had been visiting their grandparents and taking some time to rest and feel better. Princess Charlotte, always the most perceptive of the three children, asked Kate if she was feeling completely better now. Kate assured her daughter that yes, she was feeling much better and was very happy to be home with her family. Prince George wanted to show Kate a new football trick he had learned while she was away, and Prince Louis simply wanted to sit on her lap and have her complete attention. William watched this reunion with deep emotion, remembering how worried he had been just days earlier about whether they would have many more moments like this one. Seeing Kate surrounded by their happy, healthy children filled him with gratitude that went beyond words. He realized how much he had taken these ordinary family moments for granted before the medical scare had forced him to consider how precious and fragile they really were. That evening, the family had a special dinner together in their private dining room. Kate had requested her favorite meal, and the palace kitchen had prepared everything perfectly. The conversation was lively and normal, with the children sharing stories from school and making plans for the upcoming weekend. Kate found herself laughing more than she had in weeks, feeling truly relaxed and happy for the first time since this ordeal had begun. After the children were in bed, Kate and William sat together in their private sitting room, reflecting on the events of the past week and looking toward the future. Kate would need to continue with regular medical monitoring and make some adjustments to her schedule to manage her condition, but these changes felt manageable rather than overwhelming. They talked about being more intentional about family time and not taking their health and happiness for granted. William opened a bottle of champagne to celebrate Kate's good news and their reunion as a family, as they raised their glasses together. Kate felt overwhelmed with gratitude for her health, for William's unwavering support, and for the loving family they had built together. The fear and uncertainty of the past week had given her a new appreciation for the ordinary blessings of their daily life. Later that evening, as they prepared for bed, Kate and William talked about how the experience had changed their perspective on what truly mattered in their lives. They agreed that royal duties and public obligations, while important, would never again take precedence over their family's health and well-being. The scare had reminded them that their most important roles were as parents and partners to each other. As Kate fell asleep in her own bed for the first time in a week, with William beside her and their children safely asleep down the hall, she felt a deep sense of peace and contentment. The medical crisis was behind them, but the lessons it had taught about love, family, and gratitude would stay with them forever. Tomorrow would bring a return to their public duties and royal responsibilities, but tonight was simply about being together as a family who had weathered a storm and emerged stronger and more grateful than ever before.